So, guys, welcome to another episode. I'm joined in studio with none other than Andrew Lofthouse. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks yourself.
Thank you for coming on the show. No, I'm fine. Um, so I mean, I've never spoken to you before. It's the first one of me speaking to you.
Yeah,
Of course, there's everybody else who won the mixed martial arts scene, especially here in the UK. But because it's the first time of me speaking to yourself, I just wanted to like get just a bit of background about who you are, where you come from, just like a your background and how you got into the combat sporting scene.
yeah, no worries. So I currently coach at Manchester Top Team. I'm one of the coaching team with Carl Prince. I got into combat sports at the age of 11 back in 2002, I think it was 2003, into Thai boxing. I did like 15 years as a Thai boxer, fought all across the world, pretty high level. And then made the switch in 2016 into MMA, and I went straight pro, no amateur experience. Had my first fight on BAMMA. I got my ass absolutely handed to me. And I fought on Cage Warriors. And then unfortunately, when I quit work back in 2000 and start 2020, I
Okay.
worked as a builder. I quit work as a builder, and within like the first 2 months, I ended up like uh, herniating a disc in my neck, which I had to have surgery on. So that was the end of my fight career.
I'm pretty sure to hear that 2020, not long ago, that's when we had what people know at that time for was money because of the pandemic, and
Uh,
it still feels like it was yesterday.
yeah, no, yeah, it's gone really quick. I had the probably one of the last shows before the pandemic. It was on can't remember. It was like March 20th or something. I thought it was the week before the UFC card. It was supposed to be a UFC card, and the UFC got cancelled. I
Mhm.
fought the week before, and then that was it. There was a complete shutdown across the country, weren't there?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Um, but you know, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit here. It's something I would have asked you, let's say, in about 10 minutes into the interview. But I mean, if you thought, as in, just gone without any amateur experience, at least for in where mixed martial arts is concerned, I mean,
Yeah,
why isn't your name as in much more almost like a household name here in the UK? Because in the UK, on the UK scene, in say the smaller promoters, I've seen some of the fights, even if it's just 10-second clips. A lot of the fighters are very, very talented, and yet
yeah,
when there's a really good show that's been hosted, when it's a really good fight, entertaining fight that's taken place, the fighter, even from the fighter up right up to the promoter, the person responsible for hosting the event, they do not get the proper recognition. The UFC can hold a very lousy event, and yet all the focus and attention for the next 2 to 3 days will be on the UFC. I mean,
yeah.
it seems so unfair. That's really the point that I'm making.
It's the game in it. Like, look, you could be a great fighter, but if people aren't invested in you as an individual, then your name's not really going to be out there. Unless you've got to have both sides. It's entertainment at the end of the day. And I wasn't really an outspoken fighter when I was, but in the Thai boxing scene, you can ask like the majority of people in the Thai boxing scene, and they'll know who I am because I was very outspoken. But when I switched over to MMA, I saw myself as a newbie in the game, and I just stayed quiet and just got on with the work. And the plan was to become outspoken once I've got a good record behind me, but unfortunately that never comes to fruition. So I still up north people probably know me up north more so because within the northern community I am very vocal as well. But yeah, like I said, it's entertainment. Unless you have that exciting wow factor about you or story
Mhm.
about you, then you kind of get
Yeah.
left behind. Yeah.
Um, in your own honest opinion, I mean, you say you don't really compete professionally anymore, but you're still very young. Um,
Yeah,
what do you think is the current state of the UK mixed martial arts and the combat sporting scene, in the wider sense?
I think it's incredible. I think the
Mm.
level is very, very, very high. I think I, when I started MMA, there was still like individual martial arts within MMA, whereas now, as I think MMA is its own martial arts coming into its own, and the UK have got a real good youth system coming through. So if you look at like the between the ages of even younger, you can go down to 10 years old. Some of the level at 10 years old is very high. But the amateur level is probably at the level now that it was professionally 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Like I think the scene it's in good hands. Obviously, the bigger it builds, the more problems it's going to have. But
Yeah.
like in general, it's better than it's ever been.
Do you think, because I'm kind of gonna contradict something that I might say later on in the interview, but it's something that kind of something you said in the past interview that caught my attention. That's the reason why I wanted to speak to you and I want to know who
Yeah.
this guy is. Um, do you kind of think that maybe is it that fighters probably are not accepting fights when it's presented to them, especially when they're very early on in their amateur or maybe professional careers? Or do you think that they actually focusing on where the money fights are, the big money fights, so they're focusing on opportunities for marketing? So at least, once they're done with the sport one way or the other, they still have some financial help to fall back on. You know what I mean?
I think now people see a lot of things on Instagram, on YouTube. Like they see the glitz and the glam. They want a part of that. They want a bit of clout. They want people to look up to him, but they don't realize like to get there, the work has to be done. And I don't think a lot of them realize the level of work you have to put in and like sacrifice, dedication. I think that's probably the issue with some of the younger generation, the amateurs. So when they get offered these fights, they kind of like, oh, I don't really want to have that fight because what if I lose? What if this person says something about me? Blah blah blah. But you've just got to put the work in. Like the end goal is big. The end goal is really big, but you've got to put the work in at the start to get there.
The price that's turned down the bouts, if they really are having, they're still trying to build up their fight record, aren't they kind of advised? I mean, really, you're still in the really early stages of your career. Don't you think you should take the fights on? And who knows, you could win. And even if you don't, you don't win. If people see your performance in the cage, there, and if it's very impressive, very entertaining, at least people will remember you for that. It won't be all doom and gloom if you don't come out the successor.
Yeah, look, your fans are your fans. They're going to support you regardless whether you win or you lose. Like I said, I think it's just the ego. Some people don't like their ego to be dented. But in this game, you've got to accept it. Sometimes, like it's the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. As an amateur, I think everyone should just fight everyone. You should be really active, having like multiple fights every year. Like you should be, ideally as an amateur, you should be getting 20, 30 amateur fights under your belt. But like within the space of 2 or 3 years, you shouldn't have to be like a 5 year amateur career. You don't need any of that. Um, yeah, I think you should just stay active. As you turn to professional, then you are your own business at the end of the day. So you have got to be careful of some of the fights you take. It's got to be at the right time. You can't be going into fights with injuries. You've got to build your stock as a business, and obviously that's how you get onto the bigger stages, the bigger pay, that sort of thing. So I understand it as a professional. Amateur, I don't think there's any excuses.
I mean, I think in the Far East for promotions such as One Championship, and when I heard this for the first time, I really was taken aback because there's so many fights for any human being to take at any time. But there, it's not unheard of, but that a fighter can take, say, in 1 year, is it probably 50 to close to 100 fights in
Yeah,
that?
100. Yeah, that's what happens. That's standards. Well, when I used to fight in the World Championships over in Thailand with Thai boxing, like you compete against the Russians, the Belarusians, Ukrainians, and these guys had to have like a minimum of 50 fights a year to even be like go to the national trials. So like when you hear of amateurs having 2 fights over here in a year, it's just like, what's the point? Go and get a day job, go and earn money elsewhere. Because if that's what you're doing, then you're not going to make a profession out of this, in my opinion.
No, I agree with everything you said. And these days, it's very rare to come across someone who will tell you the truth about something that can, say if you're fighting the UFC or you're fighting in a big promotion, but I think maybe you're the kind of distracted by all the glamour that probably want to fight to win to get all these sponsorships and all this praise and lots of recognition in the press. I think people get distracted by that. Probably they forget about all the sweat and blood that goes in behind the scenes or so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's honestly it's tough. It is really tough. The game is not easy at all. Like we have some very high level fighters at Manchester top team, and we see the dedication that they put in and the sacrifices they make. And if you had a camera on you 24/7 and you showed all the bad stuff, there'd be a lot of people who'd be like, I don't want to get into that.
Mm.
But like nothing in life nothing in life that's like really rewarding comes with ease. Like
Yeah.
you have to work for everything. If everything was easy, then it wouldn't be valuable, would it? It's just like
No,
I've
no.
heard the saying before, like people like, I want a six pack, I want to get it easy. Why does it have to be easy? Why do you have to like? Why do you not want to go through that struggle? Why do you not want to earn the right to have a six pack? Like if everyone had one, it wouldn't be valuable, would it? So
No, nothing good comes easy. Nothing
no,
comes easy
you know,
at all.
diamonds are made under pressure, aren't they? So
Um, so another thing that came up in the interview that I listened to, he said the marketing of certain athletes. Of course, if you market yourself well, you can go far. But I think that's after you pass a certain point. Kind of like when you earned your stripes and paid your dues.
yeah.
Would you say that? Let me rephrase the what I'm going to say slightly differently. Um, you, I think it's kind of known, of course, if you don't market yourself properly, well, then you may not go far. People may not know who you are so well. And
Yeah.
yeah, so when it comes to like fighting in the future, you're not gonna have many eyes on the sports, so therefore pay-per-views to be done, and so on and so forth. But would you say that sort of thing applies to athletes such as GSP and say Khabib? Because I know you can talk about Conor McGregor, but these guys, they won far more fights than they lost, and somehow they still managed to achieve that huge following.
I think it's down to being real. Like
Mm,
if you're a real individual, you can still be yourself and be very quiet and still promote yourself. It doesn't have to be in the sense of like you don't have, not everyone has to be Conor McGregor that gives it like the loudmouth puts on the entertainment. Like real respect's real, doesn't it? And people respect you if they can see the truth. Like if you're very fake, it's, you know, real people see it a mile off. So I advise our lads to understand who they are, have their own identity. Everyone's different, you know, and run with it. Be confident with it. Be confident as like who they are as an individual, and you know they'll go far with it. And you start pretending to be someone else or trying to look up to someone else and portray yourself as them, then that's when you get found out.
No, no, of course. I think the same can be said for perhaps Kobe Covington. I think it's not uncommon that I think at one point he was told by the UFC, look, if you don't change your demeanor, if you don't change just your overall image, then whether you lose this fight or win, we're cutting the contracts, we're getting rid of you or something like that. And I think just overnight he changed completely and became this sort of
Yeah,
annoying bad boy. So,
yeah, but you can see when it's forced, can't you? Like
of course, yeah.
you can when it's forced. But with like yeah, you said Khabib, he was always real to himself, real to the people around him. So that's why he did so, and he smashed everyone. Like
Mm.
even though Conor's Conor, but like for so long he that you know that is him. People say it about Lewis McGrillen. People see it, you know, Lewis McGrillen from our gym, the flyweight.
No, I am so rubbish with the names, but if I see a picture of him, that it rings a bell. It rings a bell.
The little ginger kid that knocks everyone out. Just fought on PFL Newcastle.
Yes, yes, no, no, no,
Yeah,
yes, no. I remember at the face-off. I remember he was saying to his opponent, "You'll be surprised." And what? Listen, he wasn't mincing his
yeah,
words. I saw
no,
think.
not at all. But you do get a lot of people say like this little Conor McGregor wannabe and that, but you know that is real. That is real. Like him fighting, that is there's so many demons in life for kids from council estates. Like that's where he's releasing all his demons. Like the reason he's not in jail is because he uses that platform to release them demons inside him and get them stresses out. So you know he's genuinely 100% real. He doesn't try to be anyone else but himself.
Um, well, still, there's still so many things I want to ask. I'm just hoping that have you got the time?
I have as much time as you want, mate.
Ah, look, so you mentioned about the being like a character in terms of the marketing. Somebody such as Paddy Pimblett. Now, I'm kind of like moving into the health aspect, which is still, I'm sure, really relevant to what you do as a coach.
Yeah.
Um, this ballooning up, slimming down in between fights. Would you say that's something healthy for at least okay for a
Not at
fighter
all.
to do?
Not at all. I don't have the education and that side of thing, but if I was to put my money on it, I'd say it's more you know, like a eating disorder. I think with the likes of Paddy Pimblett, even myself, cutting weight at a young age and seeing these other fighters do it, I genuinely think it's a bit more of an eating disorder than anything else. Like, because you're forced to cut weight at such a young age and you're missing out and you're craving things, and when you get the chance, you have that you just want to eat everything, like to the point where you'll make yourself sick and then you'll eat more again. Like, I don't know the science behind it, but I'm sure there's something there with a lot of these fighters that balloon after fights.
Really? You think, well, okay, it's though he's still young, you do believe that at some point, if he continues like the way he's going, it will have some detrimental effects on his system.
Uh, Possibly. Who knows? Who knows? Because you hear about these people who have smoked, like, they're 100 years old and smoked all their life, and it's each individual's different in it. So, there is big risk there, like yo-yo dieting.
Yeah.
So yeah, he could, but he may be fine for the rest of his life. You never know.
Because when you see him after a fight, it looks like he just ballooned, or something that you think takes at least a good few months to do, to put on that much unhealthy size. He's done it just in 2 to 3 days. It looks
Yeah,
crazy.
I think it's like I said. I think it's like a form of comfort eating or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's got to be something, because I'm the same. I used to balloon, not to that extent, but once I hit like 24, 25 years old, then I used to like get a bit bigger after fights and stuff like that. And I put it down to being at a young age and not being able to eat what other people ate, and doing these weight cuts and things like that, depriving yourself of something, put yourself into a bit of starvation mode and that. And then when you get chance to eat, you're just like, yeah, give me everything. You got to think, and
Yeah,
any good any high level fighter has an obsessive personality. You have
yeah,
to have an
yeah.
obsessive personality to reach the top. Yeah, I could say fighters get a bit obsessed about food as well.
Um, as someone who is okay now a coach, and you're obviously coaching and teaching, preparing other people coming up in the sport. For you yourself, what was the hardest part of preparing for the fight? Both, I mean, you can tell me physically, health wise, even mentally. Were you, as in, sometimes nervous? Really, as in that walkout towards the cage, was the worst case scenario playing out in your mind, or was the case scenario playing out in your mind?
Best when I was walking to either a ring or a cage, that was like playtime for me. That's what I loved. I've always hated training.
Mm.
Uh, and I'd again say probably because I started at such a young age, and I did a lot of training. Like, I genuinely didn't like it. I started to hate training, but I'd love to fight. That was my release as well. Like, when I was walking to a ring or a cage, I'd be like, yeah, now I can do some damage, and I won't go to jail for it. I can have a good scrap. But it's difficult mentally, because you pick up many injuries during training, and like, sometimes you can train all the way up to a lead up to a fight, and then a couple of days out, your opponent will pull out, and sometimes you don't know where you stand in the sport. So, I'd say mentally it's harder mentally, and it can be hard physically if your coaches don't run you like your camps right and your training programs right. And then obviously dieting's horrendous in it. So
Well, the weight cuts, as in, was that for you? Was that the worst part, the most strenuous, most annoying part of the fight camp?
yeah, the last 24 hours used to, but to be fair, I used to do it absolutely horrendously. Like, I never really, I had good coaches, but I never really had a good team around me.
Okay.
As a fighter, I had one or two individuals, but no one was like educated. So, like, since I've come into coaching, um, like I look into things a lot more, and I can credit Carl for that. Carl like encourages us to look into things and educate ourselves on things so we can make it easy as possible for our fighters. Yeah, so like, we try and make it as easy as possible for our fighters now, where they're still getting the calories, still getting good food in them. So the process isn't that bad. Making the, cutting weight in the bath, we try and make that process nice and easy. But obviously, a few years ago, no one had a clue what they were doing, so you just used to like really kill yourself to make weight.
No, I've heard of well, I've not just heard, but even seen some horror stories of people who lost so much size that even on the weighing days, they've collapsed. And I heard of some horror stories of some people as young as 19, 20 who had strokes.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
with in the Thai boxing scene, there's been a few casualties, unfortunately, with a young kid from Scotland called Jordan Cole. I think like 2016 or something. 2000, he was only like 18 years old. He was in Thailand cutting weight for a fight, was out running in a sweatsuit in the middle of the day, and unfortunately, he died um, as a result of it through dehydration and that. So there has been casualties, and people try and find the solution to weight cutting. Like talking about same day weigh-ins and things like that, and that's just idiotic in my opinion. But you got to think when people are always going to cut weight. They're always going to cut weight. Even with a hydration test they do, one championships, people are still cutting weight. So to put the weigh-in on the same day, you're reducing the chances of them replenishing the fluids in the body. Got to think you've got fluid on your brain, so once you start stripping water out your body, you're going to strip the water that protects your brain and all that sort of stuff. So if you're not given enough time after a weight cut to replenish your body with the fluids and electrolytes and things like that, then you're going to have serious injuries. Like, again, even leading up to death into fights. So, what happens now is probably, it's still bad, but it's getting better. More education that goes around coaches. The weight cut process and the replenishing process will be much better for everyone. But I think it is just about education. To be honest, I don't know if they are doing it, but I'd love to see EMA do little courses around the country. Like with Paul Reed and people like that, just educating people on how to cut weight properly and safely, and then how to like refuel and replenish, put the water back in the body. That'd be good to see.
Today, there's so many things going on. This sport usually, I think, used to be just about you as a fighter, your talent, your potential, and how well you perform inside the cage or the ring where you're going to fight. But now you've got social media and you've got sponsorships, and there's a lot more distractions going on. And this goes back to what you said, that message you put out in that last interview. But what is the best advice you give to up and coming fighters? So, those who are the amateur or even very early on in the stages of their professional careers.
I'd say get obsessed with the journey. You have to be like, a lot of people see, like I said, see the end goal. They see the glitz and the glam and they want that. But it ain't about that. It's about the journey. You've got to be obsessed with the journey. You've got to love the process. And then everything else just comes off that. But if your focus is on the goal and the destination, then more than likely you're gonna fall off and you're never gonna reach it.
Would you say that bigger promotions, especially those such as the UFC, they kind of get away with kind of selling that glitz and glamour and even the hype instead of the actual fight itself?
They have to. It's business. So for them, there's a core audience, but you need to engage people that are not in your realms. You've got to reach out further, and the way they reach out further is by putting on this glitz and glam, these vlogs, these promotional events. They have to do this. It's a business at the end of the day. If say look for compare it to Coca-Cola, if it was just about a can of Coca-Cola and you were just drinking a drink, they wouldn't be as big as they are, but everything else around it sells the product.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Also, you notice about how some of their fights, the judges have been making really awkward, bizarre decisions, and you watch the fight and you realize, oh, hold on, this person clearly won. Why did the win go the other way? As in, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's just an opinion. I genuinely believe that judging is an opinion. You have a criteria that you've got to look at, but what is the true definition of cage control? Like, my perception of cage control might be completely different to yours. This is why we have so much division in society, because the way we view things are completely different. So, what we say to the fighters all the time is, you've got the skills, you've got the ability. Don't let the judges make the decision for you. You've got many routes to win. You can knock them out. You could submit them. You can put on a real good, but why make it a 50-50 fight and give them the chance to turn it? They, go against you. So you go in there and do your job and get them out of there. It's in the fighter's hands to start with. Don't let someone else make the decision for you.
Do you not think that maybe the people who are going to be judges sitting on that panel watching the fight, they're making the overall decision, conclusive decision at the end of the fight? Shouldn't they be people who at least they have some combat sports background and skills themselves? Because
I disagree with that. I think
Really?
yeah, I also, but I'm not a big believer in that someone that has never done the sport can't be a coach, because you have a different perception. Because you've got to think, if you was a fighter, then like in reality you're gonna favor something over something else. So then you've got an unbiased opinion, then, aren't you? Subconsciously, you as a Thai boxer, I'll prefer Thai boxing compared to jiu-jitsu or to wrestling, because that's what I've always done. So like subconsciously, I will always have like a bit of a biased opinion on things, and I'll see things a little bit. It's like watching your friend fighting it. Even if your friend's getting their ass whooped, you're still going to look for the good things that your friend's doing rather than like the good things the opponent's doing. And I think
Yes, yeah.
that's one of the issues of ex-fighters being judges. You know, it's not true. It's not an all-round scenario, is it? It's not like one statement's correct for all, but like I believe that could possibly, be a big factor.
It's very interesting that you take that stance, because most people think, well, you should at least get someone who maybe they've not been in that sort of situation, they've not been in the cage, they've not been in the fight, but someone who has knowledge that at least is somewhat relevant to what they're assessing, whether they come from a jiu-jitsu background, wrestling background, some sort of combat sporting background. You'd have thought, well, they're the best person for the job, but you think otherwise.
Yeah, I think anyone can do it. If
Mm.
you got to think, if to pass a judging course, you're going to have high level professionals watching what you're doing and scrutinizing what you're doing. You're going to watch enough hours of fighting to get a bit of an understanding of what's going on. So I think anyone can do it.
Mm. Last but not least, what feels like one of the biggest fights of the year, at least one of many ways, already gone past, the Adesanya versus Pereira fight, and Israel proved a lot of people wrong. But the next one, this is if it even happens at all. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I was going to ask you, who do you think would win?
Oh, oh. Do you know what? I think McGregor might win.
You do?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think there was a couple of exchanges against Khabib where he did really well. And Chandler isn't the level of Khabib. Khabib had a route to win and he's
Mm.
like perfected it. I don't think Chandler has that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
think Chandler
oh, no,
maybe get
go ahead.
too yeah, not necessarily emotionally involved, but I think he'll want to try and knock McGregor out. He's going to try and throw some big shots, and that's when he's going to be most vulnerable.
Yeah, I think people have said, and I understand what they mean. He needs to control the amount of energy waste on his feet with the striking.
Yeah, yeah,
But beyond that, many questions have been raised. Even Chael Sonnen has kind of chimed in and said, will the fight even happen? Because a date by now should have been set. And there's been no
yeah.
news
I'm
about
one
that
of
at
those
all.
people, mate. If it happens, it happens. It's great for the fans. If it doesn't, it is what it is. There's plenty of other fights out there that can get everyone excited. And even outside of the top 15 now, you've got to look at some of the level outside of the top 15. It's high level. There's some great fights that are out there to be matched inside and outside of the UFC. So MMA is in a good spot, and it's interesting to see where it's going to go within the next 10 years.
When it does happen, I do wonder what sort of McGregor we're going to get. Is it the McGregor that's been partying and drinking for so long? Because he doesn't need to fight or compete in this particular fight. I mean, he's champion, has made so much money. He's a staple name in the sport. In fact, he's a household name around the world. Um, so I mean, it's Michael Chandler that I think benefits the most from this fight, even though he himself is well
Yeah,
known, but nowhere near as Conor McGregor.
yeah. I think do you remember Luke Barnett? Luke Barnett did a podcast not long ago, and he did once his career come to an end. He was like, "What's next?" And I think that's where McGregor's at the moment. He's achieved what he's obviously set out to achieve at the start, and then it's like, what's next? He's constantly trying to fill that gap. That's when he was trying to become a champion, he had an ambition, he had a dream, he had a goal to get to, and then once he gets there, then what fills that gap? What fills that void? How
Mm,
do I get that buzz again?
mm,
And like for myself, I've been fortunate that I get the same buzz off coaching as I do fighting. You know, it took a little while, but now I'm like fighting. I'm not interested anymore. I'm genuinely not interested in fighting anymore. I'm happy to coach. I get the same buzz off it, the same thrill when they win. You know, I take it really personally if they lose, and I'll be sulking for days. You know, so and I think fighters have got to find that. You're very lucky if you find that early on in your career.
Yeah.
I'd advise young fighters as well, like fighting's your passion, but find something that can match that as well. Because if you find something that matches that passion at the same time, that then if you don't achieve what you want to achieve, or you reach them goals and you need to find something else to fill that void, then you know it's there. You're not searching to find out who you are after fighting.
Last but by no means least, because I'm sure definitely I want to have you on the show again. I want to any shout outs you want to give to anybody out there?
I'll give a big shout out to all the Manchester top team. Like, you know, this year's been a big year. We've had multiple fight on PFL. We've got a couple out on Bellator and out in May. Kane Mooser and Saul Rogers, and we've got maybe 15, 20 people fighting in April as well. So, you know, it's a big team. So shout out to the whole team smashing it at the moment. So
the list is almost endless, like you could say.
Yeah, constantly. I've got a week left before I'm having a couple of weeks off because my missus is expecting a third child. So I'm going to have a couple of weeks off, but then, yeah, straight back to it. And I'm sure she'll hate me even more by the end of the year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Guys, if you did enjoy the show, please don't forget to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. You can also catch the show on the audio platform, Spotify, Apple iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Andrew, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
Problem.
Take care.
Yes. See ya.